The purpose of Wealth Talk is to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain you on the subject of building your wealth. WealthBuilders recommends you should always take independent financial, tax, or legal advice before making any decisions around your finances.
Welcome to episode 203 of Wealth Talk. My name's Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for WealthBuilders, joined today by my side, Mr. Kevin Whelan, our founder. Hello.
Hello, Chris. Good to be with you again. In fact, we're making a habit of this. We were in London on Friday. Now we're here in the office on Monday.
Yep.
And but a good subject this week.
Absolutely. Yeah, continuing, of course, with our new direction, which is very much on helping the entire family to build wealth and pass on lessons to the children. And we've got one of our wealth coaches today, Mr. Jon Dale, who's a familiar face to the Wealth Builders community. And he's got a great story to tell.
And a real family man too, and some fantastic lessons I have to say you pulled out of him there. Given it's a new style of podcast in terms of, finding out what the history and traditions are in different families, what lessons they learned for the good, for the bad, what they're doing with their children now. And of course, this is aimed at children of all ages, because one of the things it's important to know why we believe wealth building and the whole principle of families and education should be taught by us as parents, not by schools, is because when you're a parent for life. I had grandchildren with me over the weekend, and you realize, I'm still a parent to my 30-year-old daughter, and my 28-year-old son turned up bemoaning something and going, yes, this is all hard work, isn't it? And I thought I got rid of them, but I haven't. But John's kids are younger, obviously, and some heart-rending kind of comments he makes there.
Yeah.
So,
I'm really enjoying these conversations, Kevin, and hopefully you, as our listener, will do as well. And let me just mention as well something that's coming up next week. So the 2nd of August, we are holding a Zoom beta call for anyone who's interested in contributing and being part of this exciting journey as we continue to curate and build the Wealth Builders for Families content. So if you'd like to join us on that 1-hour Zoom call, you're more than welcome. So if you're a parent concerned about, the lack of financial literacy being taught, or you've got some contributions, maybe some stories, some things that you've been doing with your children to help them learn, come and join us. And you can register. It's free. Just head to wealthbuilders.co.uk/families, put your name and email into the form on that page, and we'll send you a link to let you know how to join us.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have a good turnout, because every time I talk about this now on stage, and this is definitely what I'll be doing for the rest of my working life, Chris, people are genuinely enthusiastic, not just about learning lessons, but some genuine concerns too. We'll be highlighting the 7 key dangers that any of our younger ones face these days with their life living longer, amongst many other things. I've touched on some of those things before. We'll be covering those on the call. And if you've got some concerns you want to share with us, what are your concerns about making sure your children move from a place of, let's say, lacking in confidence, perhaps being unaware, to being financially savvy, so they make good decisions in their adult life? So they make good decisions now, influenced by you as children, and then later on in their adult life, they become responsible people too. Not just with money, but with generosity and all of those things that I'm sure Jon will touch on as well.
Absolutely. I think we'll cover some of those dangers in our conversation. So let's head on over to our conversation with Jon Dale. Jon, welcome back to Wealth Talk. How are you today?
Yeah, hi, Kristen. Yeah, fine, thank you. Looking forward to it.
Yes. Well, you're a familiar face or voice, I should say, on the podcast, definitely having appeared previously. And of course, you're known to our members as one of our wealth coaches. So how's that been going for you recently?
Yeah, really loving it. Got a really good group of people we're coaching. They're doing amazing things. And it's great to see them start kind of with that little bit of overwhelm, put a plan in place and start taking actions every month. And you look back and it's like, wow, you've come so far.
Yeah.
It's really good.
And really, that's a similar story to yourself, isn't it? Because you joined as one of our founder members when we launched in 2019, and you rapidly worked your way towards your financial targets. So, you've been there and done it yourself.
Yeah, I think when you look at USPs as coaches, that's probably mine, isn't it? I felt their pain. I've been through it. I kind of had that roller coaster journey. I got my little pitch that I say at the start of every single person when on our first call is, look, guys, this is a roller coaster. You're going to start with, wow, it's amazing. Then it's going to go, did I do the right thing? With a little parrot on your shoulder. Then it's, oh, I'm a bit overwhelmed. I'm looking at this, following the shiny penny, I call it. And then we settle, we find the pillar, we focus. Suddenly they look back 6, 12 months later. And like, if you look, we've got people that have written courses in 4 months memberships, and they've got people already signed up as members, some 20, 30 members, all paying recurring income. We've got property pillar, and they've started 4 months later. They've already got a few. So yeah, it's really exciting watching their journey, and keeps us enthralled, doesn't it, in our journey as well. They keep you on our toes, so we've got to keep moving forward as well and kind of practice what we preach.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you're referring back to one of your coachees, Rachel Bunny, who was on the podcast just 2 episodes ago, episode 201, sharing how she's launched her membership site with a little bit of nudging from you in the background, just to help her overcome that perhaps a little bit of fear.
Yeah. And I think in the future, there's 2 more that I'm thinking of in the back of my mind that I think will be on future podcasts that are nearly there. So it'll be interesting to see that as well.
Good stuff. So, Jon, today we're talking specifically around the importance of really bringing up our children to understand the lessons around money and the mindset. And this stuff isn't taught in school. We know that. And you're a family man, Jon. So tell us about the members of your family.
Yeah. So me, my wife, 2 children, both twins. So we did it in one go. They were born prem. So it means a lot to me. They were 23 weeks. So £1.3, £1.7 when they were born. My little boy's got dyskinetic cerebral palsy and global development delay. So he needs a little bit of extra help when it comes to learning, whether that was walking or speaking or maths or English. So yeah, it's really important to me that we brought the family in. We brought them into our wealth kind of dynamic, and the language used around the house is so important as well.
So tell us their names and their ages, and also your wife, so we really get a good picture for your family here.
Yeah, so my wife, Kerry, JJ and Lexi, they're both 11. So tomorrow's their last day in primary school, going on to comp.
Wow.
And it's interesting to see the dynamic where you've got my daughter who's in mainstream school. You'd think could be the one quite excited, looking forward to it. She's the nervous one. You've got my son who's in the kind of the unit where he gets the extra help. He's going to a comp where he's going to be part mainstream. You think he'd be the nervous one. No, he's the one bouncing. He's already left. He's ready to go. He wants his uniform bought tomorrow for his new school. And we'll have 8 weeks of, I'm in big school in 8 weeks. I've got 7 weeks left. And it's going to be a nightmare for the next 8 weeks with him waiting to start his new school. But yeah, totally different dynamics, totally different people. But that's the joys, isn't it, of watching the kids grow and kind of develop into the people they're going to be.
Absolutely. Now, you're a business owner, you're a property investor, Jon. How important is it for you to be a great financial role model for your children?
I think it's important they understand money and they understand the language and what we do. As for wealth, my plan is hopefully to create them a recurring income stream when I'm not here, that they'll have enough money coming in to kind of do what they want to do, which is something I didn't have. And I think I see people in life, like, you love what you do now. This is you through and through. Suddenly, because you love it, you've made a success of it. And you see that day in, day out with lots of people. They find something they love, they focus on it, they concentrate. That turns into being monetized, and they seem to make more money doing that than they would in a normal job. That's kind of the role I'd like my kids to go down, is just do what they love. Yeah.
So what are some of their current passions and interests at the moment, Jon?
So I suppose we need to go back to where this all started, which was my wealth building journey and kind of doing our business logo. That's, I suppose, where we brought the kids in to our conversation. They'd come to houses with me and view a house, but we'd never really discuss the mortgage or the finance or renting it and how the money works. So we did the logo. The
family wealth business logo.
Yeah. So you kind of teach us that, and they did it. So we had I helped them design it on Canva, because back then they were 7, 8. But they designed it on there. They put the family first, which I thought was quite good. But they also included the dog and everything. And then they put a picture of a house. And and then they put some hands linking together. And I was like, right, talk me through what that means. And it was, well, look, family's what comes first. Houses is what you do, Dad, to make your money. And the friendship underneath is we want to move forward and do things with our friends and family that's fun and friendly. I was like, right, okay. Out of that, Jay, my son, loves property. If you ask him what he wants to do, he wants to be a YouTuber. But he wants to do something on YouTube that's different. So I'm kind of working in the background where I've been educating myself. You can probably see that in the camera in the back, that we've got to learn how to edit YouTube videos and do all of that. And then hopefully he'll kick off a YouTube channel pretty soon. My daughter's she's into animals, she's into dogs, dog training. She wants a dog hotel. It was put on the wealth plan back 4 years ago. That hasn't changed. She's kind of drawn it all out. She's got pictures upstairs of what it's going to look like. This farmhouse with cottages on the side that are turned into dog hotels. She's going to charge a fortune for it because they're going to be proper pampered pooches. And what kind of resonated with me when I really realized she picked up our language that we use was, well, Dad, I'd rather look after 5 dogs and get paid loads and look after 20 and charge less. And I was like, great. So we've got the idea of value versus time and everything. Yeah. So yeah, bringing them in, but kind of trying not to force them down a particular path or follow me or follow my wife with a dance school or anything. It's kind of, guys, no, look, you do you, which you hear me say quite a lot on everything I do. And I think that's really important, which again, we got from you listening to your old podcasts, which was one of the things that I think changed my mindset completely. You start looking at what everyone else is doing and really focus. Remember who that was with, but Brandon Block, I was dancing with only at the weekend actually, so he's still going strong. But you mentioned to me the other day when we were talking, actually, Jon, that Jay doesn't just want to be a YouTuber, but there's a certain the financial target attached to that as well, right? Yeah, so he said he wants to be a YouTuber. We were talking with his grandmother, and his grandma was like, that's not a job. So he came back with some figures at the age of 11 with difficulties. He was like, well, actually, Gran, the average YouTuber in the UK now earns about 40 grand, which is more than some people have in a job. So actually, even if I was average, I'd get 40 grand. He goes, but I'm not going to be average. I'm going to be the best. And I'm going to get rich, and I'm going to have my mansion and my car. And then he went on a big rant like he does. And it was great to see, because he was like, and actually, the more I make, the more I buy, the more I film, the more people will watch me. It goes, so it's ever growing then. Yeah. And I was like, oh, and to see they've picked that up at 11 is kind of really interesting, because it's something they wouldn't learn in school. Well, I'm just going to ask you that, Jon. Where do you think that influence has come from? Do you think it has simply been from, listening to you and the family influence? Or do you think it's their circle of friends? Do you think it's social media, YouTube? Where's that coming from? I'd say definitely us as a family. We had a big mind shift back, I think 2011, 12. We were doing okay in business, but things were hard sometimes. Things were good, and it was a job. So we started changing. The big set came 2019 when we joined yourselves. And it was right, let's focus. Let's put everything in order. Let's go step by step. And they came on that journey with us. So they were part of, not very nice to talk about, but when we were doing the roof, they were part of that conversation. So look, if anything happened to us, who's going to look after you? Okay, this is what's going to happen. And then we'd speak to those people about what we'd like them to do. And I think just bringing all that in and bringing it to the forefront, he wasn't necessarily teaching them or educating them or you've got to learn this. Like, they didn't sit down and write it all down like they would with maths or repetitive. But I think the more they hear it, the more they believe it. And we discussed a long time ago that we don't really talk about money in that's expensive or what's that going to cost. Sometimes we'll talk about value. So we'll go, right, is that worth that? Is that what you really want? Like here, some parents going, oh, that toy's 200 quid. That's really expensive. We kind of rephrase that. And it's like, that's £200. Are you sure that's what you want? What else could you get for £200? And we kind of make them compare. So then they see the real value of what they're spending and they decide whether they want it. And then the next conversation is not, can you afford it? It's how are you going to pay for that? How can you afford it? What do you need to do to get it? I think that comes down to little things like, again, we spoke about this before, but and this isn't a parenting technique. I'm not getting on a soapbox and saying we're the best parents ever. This is just the way we do it. But I see people giving their kids chores, and I think for me, that's a bit old hat. Is go and clean your bedroom. You can have a £5. They should clean the bedroom anyway. It's their bedroom. It's their domain. Why are we giving them a £5 for cleaning the bedroom? However, if they've done something really good or something positive, then we reward that instead. And I just think he's teaching them or not teaching them time for money. By them giving up their time and cleaning their bedroom and earning a £5, I think that's a job, isn't it? And we're teaching them that influencing that's kind of the job scenario. So it's go to school, go to college, get a job. We kind of try and do the opposite. It's right, okay, great, but you should tidy your room anyway, because that's just part of what you should be doing. You should clear your plate away from the table, because that's part of what you do in everyday life. However, wow, you've just sat there for 2 hours and done an amazing drawing. Great, let's go and do something. Or they've been through some pain, they've been to hospital and had an injection or whatever, or the blood test like my daughter has sometimes. If she's been strong and she's been through it, and when she's nervous, I say, right, you've got to get through them nerves and kind of push through, because you're always going to be nervous in life. You've got that feeling, but that feeling doesn't go away whether you do it or you don't do it. So actually, let's just do it and get it over and done with. And if they do that, that's when we reward them, and we'll give them pocket money or take them to the shop to buy something. So just a slightly different way of doing it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to hear that. And of course, we don't want to disrespect the education system or teachers in any way. They do a tremendous job and they work extremely hard. But we know that these lessons aren't taught in schools. Have you had any indication, through parents' evenings or through speaking with your kids, are they taught anything around money at school that you're aware of?
Not really. They probably taught what a 1p is and a 10p and a £20 note and things, but I wouldn't think they talk of how money works or how we think it works. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Everyone's got a different opinion. Everyone's got a slightly different take on what leverage is, what money is, and kind of how it works. Teachers are typically normally from a educational background, so they're pretty much taught from day dot. Right, you go to primary school, you go to middle school, high school, or comp now, and then you go to college, you go to university, you get your degree, and then you're a teacher. So they teach that kind of education is the way to go. They probably haven't been taught themselves about money. We had one teacher in my daughter's old school that was amazing. He's now, funny enough, gone on his own and set up his own gym and doing his own online gym course and everything, which I spoke to him about. And one of the books I first gave as a present when you give the teachers, I give him the Matt Manson book, How Not to Give a.
Yep.
We'll leave it there, kind of book. And he loved it, and he was like, "Wow, that's right up my street." And I gave him it as a joke because we got on quite well. And then when I got chatting to him, he was like, "Yeah, this is what I do for the kids." And he was teaching the kids actually to do their homework via YouTube.
Interesting.
Which I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Yeah, I want them to go online and record a video."
Right.
And I was like, why then? He goes, because that's the way of the world now, isn't it? Everything's on video. Everyone needs to be able to present. Everyone needs to be able to stand up and speak to people. Something we've been through in WealthBuilders. I never wanted to do this, did I? When I first started, you wouldn't have got me on a podcast. You wouldn't have got me standing up and speaking in front of people and doing that. And it's something you kind of get used to out of your comfort zone. And I'd encourage the people listening to this, if you get the opportunity to do it, kind of go and do it. Get on those podcasts, stand up on stage and speak, because it builds you up as a person as well. And that's what he was doing to the children, building them up, not only academically, but also psychologically, confidently. And he was explaining all the YouTube things and how it all works. But I think he left and went on his own. And if you ask him why, he said, because I was fighting the system all the time. He personally felt like a lot of the parents and some of the teachers didn't like his record it and upload it, rather than you've got to write it down and do it. And he's like, as long as they're learning it and it's going in, whichever medium it is, the modern technologies, they need to type it on a laptop. They need to be able to speak it into the laptop. Like he was teaching them, you can speak into the laptop and it writes out what you're saying.
Yeah. It instantly makes me think about, obviously, AI now and technology just moving at the fastest pace it ever has done. Does that scare you in any way? Do you feel that, this is something that perhaps Jay and Lexi will pick up and, run with faster than maybe you're able to keep up with? And do you see any concerns there?
I think if I say I wasn't concerned, it'd be wrong, because it's scary. Where's he going to go in the end? But I'm embracing it. I'm loving it. And I'd like to think if he was there, he'd be loving it as well. Because yes, we need to learn things and we need to understand things, but I think it's just a different way of learning. I was never a classroom kid. So I was never one that could sit in front of the classroom and listen to, I think you know me by now, I go off on a tangent and all over the place. So me sat in a classroom for 3 hours learning, it wasn't me. But I passed all my GCSEs in the end, and I did that by short revision. YouTube wasn't around then, so it was W.H. Smith revision cards. And I just read the revision cards, went in, passed my exam and went home. Again, I think modern technology, YouTube and AI, as long as we get the context right, and the scary thing is some of the details not always correct when using Chat GPT and all of this stuff. But I think when we get to the point where the information is correct, embrace it. If we want to know, I don't know, what the square root of this is, or what a hypotenuse triangle is, or whatever we're doing in maths or science, I think if we can put that into a system and it tells us the answer, as long as it explains the answer, and how it, and the answer's correct, then yeah, what a great way to learn. Does that mean teachers might become a little bit obsolete and we might end up using a lot more AI? Maybe. I think the only scary bit for me is the interaction. Kids miss that interaction. They're upstairs on YouTube. Again, my kids do it all the time. They're home from school. They're just dying to run upstairs and get on their computers. And we're like, right, how was your day? How was this? How was that? They don't really care. They don't really want to tell us. They want to go to their room. We kind of try and have that chat, and whether that's good or bad, we let them go to their room and go on their laptops if that's what they want to do to relax. Kind of go and do it, and then we have that conversation around the dinner table. Yeah. So we sit down and try and do it rather than force it. Do it at a different time when they want to talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's another point I was keen to ask, Jon, is where do you have these conversations with your family? Is it around a dinner table? Is it when you're out and about? What kind of fun things are you doing to involve the kids? You're a property man, you take them on property site visits and things like that as well.
Yeah. If you start with the property stuff, I suppose, my daughter, not so much. She'll sit in the car. That's just her. My son loves it. He goes to site. He knows all the guys. He knows all the trades. He'll even go around house and snag and tell them where they've done something wrong. And he gets away with it more than me because he's obviously young. So he'll be going, that's rubbish. You haven't done that. I wouldn't speak to him that, but he does. And it's quite funny watching him. And they're like, God help us when you're in charge kind of thing. And that's what he's looking forward to. But that's not forced. That is just, I think it's natural for kids probably to look up to their parents. That might change in the future. But yeah, whenever we're out, we talk about the houses. Jay'll always ask, what's the next project? Have you bought a house today? Which is a bit of a weird conversation when you're in a restaurant and people are looking over at you. And it's just like randomly, have you bought another house today? And people kind of find that strange. But yeah, having a meal out and about when we're on holiday. I wouldn't say we set time to do it. Again, that's not my style. I find it boring if my parents wanted me to learn about wealth for an hour and a half and sit and learn it. I think if we can bring it in to everyday life and it's just natural, they pick up that automatically, and it's automatically ingrained rather than forcefully ingrained.
Yeah. Well, and that's very true, Jon. And perhaps be interesting as well to understand really what your childhood experiences were around money, when you were growing up. And looking back, did you have a financial role model that was an influence on you?
It's probably a hard one. So we grew up on a council estate. We weren't skint. So I never didn't have anything, but we weren't rich either. So it wasn't like, I don't know, you hear stories of people going to school with hand-me-down trainers and things like that. I want to get that clear. It wasn't that. It was just a normal family. My dad had 2 jobs. So he'd go to work during the day, finish at 5, come home. He'd go work in a petrol station and stuff to get extra money, which gives us what we wanted. So I suppose as a work ethic, it was more, you have to graft to get on. You have to work hard. You have to work the hours. You have to give up your time for money. Was really ingrained from an early age.
Yeah. And sorry, Jon, did you have siblings as well?
No, just me. No, just me, spoiled only child.
Yeah, same as me.
Mummy's boy, I suppose. But yeah, my granddad was probably a true Arthur Daly back then, in the fact that he used to have ice cream vans that he'd rent out. But he used to work in the bakers, so he used to then turn the ice cream van into bread vans. So it didn't only sell ice cream, delivered fresh bread every day, and then it'd do Sunday dinners on a Sunday from the ice cream van. You look back and I think, my God, you're crazy, but it worked, and it brought the money in. He had a few houses, but he lived in them, so he'd travel around to holiday destinations like Bridlington and Scarborough. And I'll always remember the poll tax came in, and he was like, right, I'm selling everything. And that's what he did, because he had to pay it on all of them. So he refused. Then they changed it, so he wouldn't have had to, but he jumped into it. And I'll always remember when he passed away, I think he had like $5,000 left in the bank. We drove past his house the other day, the bungalow that he had with my kids, probably valued at $750,000 if he'd have kept it. But he chose not to because of a decision the government made. I look back and go, you'd have probably left more than $5,000 if you hadn't have done that. But I suppose you don't know what you don't know at the time. And he didn't have any of this education. So he was brought up on the grafting lifestyle, if that's what you've got to work hard to do it. I was told, get a trade. So I went to be a mechanic. I got a trade. I hated it. I remember going out one night to a nightclub and I had greasy marks on top of my white shirt where I hadn't probably showered properly. And I hated it. I then got in the next morning and I realized all the salesmen that were there probably earned 3 times as much money as me, but worked 3 times less than me. So I asked if I could move into sales. They said no. So I just went in there one Saturday morning for free. Said, look, I'm going to have a go. By the Sunday morning, I had a full-time sales job. And I kind of left that. I went abroad, which is where I grew up. And that was my pivotal journey. Stand on your own 2 feet, learn for yourself, met different people who were business owners, started thinking about business, came back, and then never looked back, really. Got into sales and marketing, my own business, met you guys, and kind of now sat. I'm not a millionaire. I might be on paper with the properties we've got and things, but it's not like I can go to the bank and draw out a couple of mil and go and enjoy it. But we've got a nice lifestyle. We do what we want when we want. We've got choices, which I think is what wealth gives you, isn't it? It gives you the choice to do what you want when you want to do it. And obviously through COVID and through everything else, it allows you to survive rather than just scrape by.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, Jon. And of course, we're looking at intergenerational wealth here. Those that have been before us, the legacies they've built and the lessons they've passed on and the values they've instilled in us as well. And obviously that shapes the way that you then interpret that and turn that into your own lessons that you're passing on to your children. And of course, hopefully one day they'll be passing that on once again. And, whilst your children definitely sound like, certainly Jade, they've got that entrepreneurial, well, both of them for sure, the entrepreneurial mindset right now, Jon. Is that important for you that they follow in your entrepreneurial footsteps?
No, if I'm honest. Literally, as long as they're happy, I genuinely don't care. My job is, so when my dad passed away young as well, didn't really leave us anything. He left my mum a pension, but that was it. I look back and I go, right, that's not me. So I think you've got good lessons in life and bad lessons in life, but you can turn them all into positives if you decide that's not going to happen to you. So for me, I just want to leave my kids with enough income where they can choose what they want to do when they want to do it. And I think we're more or less there. We've already set up another property company now. So everyone knows me for Jag Property, but we've set up JLEX Properties. That's already got a property in there, soon going to be 2. And that's slowly going to build. That is purely my kids' college fund, retirement fund. They can either sell them when they're older and just take the cash and do what they want. Or if one of them wants to run it and take the residual income, I'm hoping that while I'm still here, but they've got time. They'll have 2-3 grand a month coming in. And I think at the age, if I can do that by the time they're 21, 22, that's not a bad start in life. It's not multi-million generational wealth, but actually it can be better because it'll give them cash flow all of the time to do what they want to do. And that's kind of my target. That's what we're going to do. And I think my job's done then, and it's kind of hand the baton to them to see how far they can take it and do it their way.
Yeah. I'm very grateful, Jon, for you sharing and opening up today, and not just sharing with me, but with our listeners as well. And well done on your own journey. It's by far not over yet. And we look forward to hearing about future updates as time goes on.
No, thank you. I've loved it. It's like therapy, isn't it? It's good, isn't it? You get it all off your chest.
It's a lovely conversation.
Probably new podcast in itself, isn't it? The Wealth Builder Therapy Pod.
Well, indeed, it might be. All right, Jon, take care. We'll catch up again very soon.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Really enjoyed speaking to Jon, and just talking about that topic brings out things that perhaps wouldn't come out in a normal conversation about, building assets and wealth.
Well, it's a bit of therapy, isn't it?
As Jon said, yes.
So when people start talking about this, you're touching people at a deeper level, Chris, than when you're talking about money. This isn't about money. While, of course, Wealth Builders are all about the finance, but it's a richness of life experience in all ways, not just financially. And that's important. And you do pull those things out with Jon.
Yes, well, of course, community is at the heart of everything that we do, and certainly will be as we progress with the family's direction. So let's head on over to Trustpilot before we go into some of those lessons that we can pull out from Jon's chat there. And we've had a review this week coming in from David, who says, I discovered Wealth Builders and have been going through all their previous podcasts. There is a vast library of knowledge, whatever area of wealth building you are interested in. I also had calls with both Christian and Kevin recently, which were both great. They are genuine people, and I really felt that their main goal was to aid and assist rather than sell. Their passion for wealth building is infectious, and I would highly recommend to anyone interested in this area.
There you go. I think it's another reassurance, isn't it, that I believe we are the only holistic, impartial, transformational organization in the whole of the UK, which is what I love about this, because there are lots of things spoken about, but they're more often than not American, and nothing wrong with, the American ideas, of course not. But some of the translation loses a little bit, doesn't it? In tax, in structures, in just different ways of education. So good to know that we're hitting home there.
Yeah.
And absolutely. We're kind of Kiyosaki, but in English.
And Jon made that point, didn't he, about the language being used is so important. And of course, the influence of Jon being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, going out and looking at properties, you can see the language he's using day to day is rubbing off now, certainly on Jay, because he loves going out on a site visit and having a little go at the builders there.
Yeah, doing all the snagging on his own. I mean, it's fun to do that, but in reality, when you think about being a parent, whatever age, children are observers. They're sponge-like. So you've got to mind your mouth. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Because whatever language you use, whatever words you use, words are tools. And if you use the right words, if you think carefully and cautiously about the words you use, you'll influence your younger ones for the positive. But it's very easy, isn't it, to slip into different language, particularly around the subject of money, because we know we're living in troubled times. Life is more expensive. Interest rates are higher. So it's very easy to give people the wrong impression. So scarcity over abundance. And we want to encourage a more abundant way of thinking, because there are lessons that we can share that will bring that abundance into the lives of you and your younger ones too. Yeah,
and I'd just like to thank Jon as well, because, he referred to the process that he's followed himself since he joined Wealth Builders as a foundation member. And, he's passing some of those lessons on now to his children, making sure that obviously, they're set up with some savings accounts and the understanding of trust and creating the family wealth business logo, which was something that, of course, we bring in right at the beginning, is to get people to think about, what's a meaningful name and how can you bring this to life so that the whole family really get behind it and get the concept.
Yeah, and it's good. And we've seen so many of the logos, haven't we, with the children's influence very obvious there, and sometimes also in the name. But children can get involved very, very early on doesn't really matter what age, there's something they can do that can get them involved, inspired, informed, even playing games that just make them a little bit more aware. We all know that younger people, like as we see, younger animals of all kinds, they play in order to get stronger, and you want to flex their money muscles, if you like, by getting them to do things and getting them involved, particularly in a world where everything is done by tapping and money's no longer there. So find ways to bring money, real money, into the conversation so they appreciate that. We don't actually legally own our money in reality, because we've got to pay for things like roads and street lights and all those things. And we want to get those lessons across to our children that whatever money they've got, they have an obligation that some of it will go to fund and do other things. And that's where we can bring things like generosity into play so that they can use some of their money or some of the things they do. And we're hoping to bring many examples of that with case studies from our wealth building families.
Yeah, of course. And just a reminder again to join us on that beta call that we'll be running next week on the 2nd of August, where you can share some of these things you've been doing. So some of these fun things that you're doing with your children, and hear from others as well. So a real kind of mastermind group of like-minded people on that call. And we talk about generational wealth. So not just looking forward, but, respecting those that have worked hard before us. And certainly Jon referred to his parents, who of course worked hard to give him a good upbringing, but then his grandfather as well, who was the Arthur Daly figure, very entrepreneurial, but of course made a decision, and that decision perhaps, didn't preserve the wealth for the next generation in the way he perhaps would have liked it to.
That's an interesting one, because as we become a little bit more aware now, and we talk about the wealth of the whole family, I think I'm definitely seeing ways that if you become informed now, you can also help and inform the generation that's older than you. Because increasingly we're seeing older people switching off, making expedient decisions, certainly around situation now where some older people might make the decision to sell something instead of keep something, want to avoid the pain of administration, so they'll get rid of something rather than doing the paperwork. And I think you've seen an experience in your own family, Chris, haven't you, where an asset in the family was sold that if it was kept, it would have been hugely valuable for the next generation.
Yeah, worth probably 20 times in today's money. So yes, I think many of us will have those similar stories. And of course, we want to educate and support and help people to build a long-lasting legacy that will stretch ahead many generations.
Well, the biggest one, and I'll definitely be touching on this in some more detail, will be around inheritance tax. That for the most part, inheritance tax is largely a voluntary tax, not exclusively, but largely, and can be mitigated by good planning. And it's usually being comfortable and confident around the subject. For many families, money is a taboo subject, so it's not really discussed. And we've seen many generations receive money with a huge amount of money in tax to pay that could have been avoided had the conversation been had. But we see so much evidence that it's not.
So I'd like to thank Jon again for his time today and for opening up and sharing his story. And of course, we'll be inviting many more members and friends of Wealth Builders onto future episodes as we expand on the family's content. But of course, for those that perhaps want to focus on their own wealth, of course, we're very much still supporting them as well.
Well, absolutely. So whether you want to build the wealth for your own safety, security and well-being, or to help other people. But in the end, think about this. If you build an asset, and it's the essence of wealth building, you build in multiple streams of income from assets, and you're on your own, you're still going to have a legacy issue, aren't you? Because you've got that asset that is going to outlive you. So whatever the good causes and things that you care about, it's definitely still going to have some importance. So stick with us. It's not just about those people who've got children, but if you care about something, it's just as important.
Well, if you enjoyed listening today, please do share this with somebody you think will benefit, and just tap on your podcasting app, hit the share button, and we'd appreciate that. The more people we can, spread our message to, Kevin, we think will only do good in the world.
Well, the more families we can help.
Absolutely. So thanks for your time. And Kevin, we'll catch up same time, same place next week.
Until then, my friend, see ya.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget that we are constantly updating our resources inside the Wealth Builders membership site to help you create, build, and protect your wealth. Head over to wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership right now for free access. That's wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership.